Welcome to Truth Telling with Elizabeth Zialto, the podcast dedicated to exploring the truth that's always evolving within us and around us, where we explore the potentiality of truth as a highly esteemed value, especially in the context of everything that falls under categories like healing, growth, leadership, creativity, spirituality, love and relationships, boundaries, and more. If you're new to me, just so you know who you're signing up to listen to here, I'm the creator of a body of work called Wild Soul Movement, which is rooted in embodiment practices. So that includes all kinds of medicine for the body, mind, heart, and soul. I work privately with clients in the Akashic Records, and I hold a variety of gatherings, workshops, masterclasses, and trainings, both online and in person throughout the year. This podcast will be 5 years old in 2020, as will my self-published book, Untame Yourself. I'm also an avid Latin dancer, salsa and bachata being my favorites, and occasionally I do stand-up comedy for fun. I share all of that with you to let you know that this is a place where you can come with your multiple talents and interests and passions to be encouraged, nourished, and cultivated. We are all more than just one thing, and part of our truth telling on this show is to celebrate that. The main intention here, though, is to contribute to creating a kinder, gentler, more curious, collaborative, and reverent world where people respect each other's backgrounds, experiences, and truths, and they trust in themselves and in life and recognize that we really do need each other. So we publish episodes twice a month, and if you want to know when they're going live, you can follow me on Instagram at Elizabeth Zialto. You can also enter your name and email anywhere at wildsoulmovement.com. and you will get updates from us. One last thing, no episode of this show is ever meant for everybody, but they are all meant for the right person at the right time. So thank you so much for being here with me. That was an introduction to the show. Now, let me tell you more specifically about today's episode. What's up, everybody? This is episode number 337 of Truth Telling with Elizabeth Zialto. As regular podcast listeners have probably noticed, we are operating on more of a sporadic recording schedule this year and far fewer interviews. The way I'm interviewing this year is I am just inviting a handful of people who I want to have deep and meaningful conversations with, somewhat different or tangential to all of the other conversations we've had over the years here. This podcast, our archives are like a library, almost like a university of all kinds of topics that go anywhere under health, wealth, relationships, spirituality, creativity, healing, development, leadership. So there's already so many incredible interviews and solo episodes, and I'm not really interested in contributing to more noise. So I'm being a little more discerning about what I publish and what I record and what I put together for you this year. Today's interview is for sure one of the most important conversations we've ever had on the show. It is on death and dying. And before I tell you about that, I am going to let anyone know who's listening in real time. This episode is publishing on Wednesday, March 25th, 2020. And we are all up in a global quarantine due to the coronavirus. And so I put together a special pay what you can offer for my signature power program. If you want the details to that, you can head on over to wildsoulmovement.com/power dash the letter P, the letter W, the letter Y, the letter C. So that's wildsoulmovement.com/power dash PWYC. You can grab that content and get access to a private Facebook group from now until June of 2020. Which includes a weekly check-in call Thursdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. So that's just something I had that I could easily make accessible that, to be quite honest, is built to be supportive, grounding, healing, super connective, community-oriented during a time like this. So check that out if that resonates for you. And as well, all genders are welcome. Rather than having this be a women's circle for this round, literally anyone and everybody is welcome to that. Now for today's conversation, our guest, Kelly Watkins, is an acquaintance of mine. I've known Kelly for many years, and I'd never actually met her or chatted voice to voice or face to face before. And she reached out to me on Instagram to share a post last week about how she'd been diagnosed with an incurable blood cancer. and she asked if I'd be willing to have a conversation about death and dying with her on the podcast. She herself has worked on both sides of life as both a nurse in labor and delivery and a hospice nurse, and then outside of Western medicine as a death doula. So she has a lot of perspective to share. And there were some things that she really wanted to share while she's still here. So of course I said yes. This episode is that conversation. And one of the things that we both noticed about midway through the conversation was that we could have gone deeper and tapped into more of the things that people prefer not to talk about. But we were also both feeling sensitive around the current climate, around the coronavirus, and the mortality and death we're about to be confronted with across the globe, probably on a larger scale than most of us realize. So we trusted that where we did go with the conversation was perfect. And God willing, we will have a follow-up conversation a month or two from now and see how things are shaken out. So a few of the threads we pulled in our chat were being a mother of 5 under quarantine right now, and just being able to be with one of her children and none of her grandchildren. We talked about what matters most to her right now and why, definitions of grace and the presence of grace in her current experience, and also experiences that she's had with clients and patients over the years. We talked about death as a calling, how life and death are connected, how important it is to talk about death, how we need to find ways to be more comfortable with this, and more. And as I'm feeling more compelled to approach interviews this year, we just hit record and went until we felt complete, which I'm pretty sure was about 90 minutes to an hour and 40 minutes. So maybe listen to this in one big chunk, maybe break it up into chunks, but I hope you'll be transformed and moved by this tender conversation. Share it with your loved ones, use it to spark your own inquiries and explorations of your relationship to death and dying, and any shifts you may want to make around that. The show notes with links where you can follow Kelly, her Kelly's World page on Facebook, learn more about her, and also find any of the resources that we mentioned in the episode can be found at untameyourself.com/337. And I also want to throw in a resource we didn't mention, which is a book by Frances Weller that my friend Heather Lindemann has recommended to me a couple times over the years that I actually just downloaded. It's a book about grief, and it's called The Wild Edge of Sorrow. So that's for anyone who might be feeling some premature grief or grieving, life as we knew it, or anything else that you might be grieving or pre-grieving right now. So lots of resources at the show notes page, which again are at untameyourself.com/337. And now meet Kelly. So everyone, this is I'm going to say extra special episode of Truth Telling. It's certainly a first. Our guest, Kelly, had reached out to me because there are some things that she wanted to share from this place where she is at in her life, which I will let her share with you in a moment. And it feels sacred to me. It feels like an honor. When I said, I can't believe you'd want to have this conversation with me. And she said, you're the first person I thought of. I was like crying over my phone. I'm like, all right, the show is called Truth Telling. Let's friggin' do it. So I am still going to start out with our questions that we always start out with. The first one being, how's your body today?
My body today is amazing. I mean, it's really doing some magical things right now. Things I didn't expect. And I don't know, is this where I should maybe tell a detail about that?
You can. I mean, they will have already heard the intro, so they know what's coming, but go for it.
Okay. Well, what the funny trick to that is that I am 53, so I should be in wonderful health, which I am. But I also just found out that I have an incurable blood cancer that I am now getting treated for. But it's actually a cancer of the immune system, which is kind of what you want to have a strong one of right now.
Yeah. At the time we're recording this, for people, if people are listening to it later, it is March 2020 when this big coronavirus outbreak has happened and we are all quarantined.
We're all quarantined. Did you ever think that was something you would say on your podcast?
No. There's a lot of things I've been saying to people this week and receiving from people this week that I just never thought we would be texting each other.
I know. Like loving things and like those kinds of things.
Yes, but also just like logistical strange things about like, so if we go for a beach walk, should we wear masks? Not a
Right.
thing I ever thought I'd be texting somebody.
Right. What is the answer to that, by the
Uh,
way?
for me, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do that. Yeah, 100%.
So right now my body is spectacular, Elizabeth. It's
Okay.
doing things that is I'm in awe of every day. And it's also dying.
Mm. Everything is a friggin' paradox. We'll come back to that. And so what's a truth that's having a big impact on your life right now?
Well, not to answer the most cliche answer, but I am learning as you are that really there truly is nothing besides love that matters to our being. That's not to say, that there isn't, wonderful things about career and money and homes and things like all of that too. But really, what are we all scrambling for right now? It's to be by our people
Hmm.
and to love each other and to say all the things we haven't really done yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is that going in your house right now?
Well, it's tricky. It's interesting. This is something I've been dealing with the last maybe 2 days. Is that I'm quarantined with one of my 5 babies. So there's 4 other babies that are not here at our house just because they've kind of been still out in the world and going to school and having this thing. And my doctor says you can't have not even a kind of a chance of getting infected. So
Yeah.
we have those guys separate, which is not what I want right now. So I am throwing fits and crying and not liking that. It doesn't feel good, and it feels like it's for a long time.
Mhm.
So I don't know what to do about that.
Yeah.
What do you
How,
do about that?
how do they feel?
Um,
Are they sharing or are they trying to hold it together?
they're trying to hold it together. Yeah, they're trying to go. Oh, we're totally fine. This is great, and maybe they are, and maybe that's just me, being a mommy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
So,
they are 33 down to 19, so they're kind of in their lives a little bit, and they probably are settling into where they want to be right now in this catastrophe.
yeah.
So we'll
So,
figure. Yeah,
um, you're saying, so we'll figure it out.
yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, there's a lot of choice that has been removed right now, which is
That's right.
interesting.
That's why we're all bucking. We're so used to having every choice possible, right? We're yeah. This is a moment for sure where we're getting medicine that we didn't ask for, but that we really, really needed.
Big time. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so interesting to see and also to watch people's survival mode responses, right?
Yeah.
It's
Right.
nobody's best look.
It's not the best look out there. It's of some of the people like you who have been living this lifestyle for years. It's like, oh yeah, we're having camp still, and it's having an impact in other ways.
Hmm.
But people that are just go 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 boom boom out in the world and on their phone nonstop, it's a little much for the earth to be still. It's a little much to ask of us, but there's no other choice, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Slow down.
Slow down. So when I emailed you to say, I want to honor and respect any privacy or boundaries. Just let me know if anything's off limits. You were like, no, I'm an open book. But there were some specific things that you definitely wanted to share about. And so before we dig into that, I'd love if you could just tell our listeners so they could just know you a little bit more about your life, what you have done, your
Yeah.
babies, all these things. And I will share for people listening. So I've known Kelly over the course of the years, friend of a friend, and we've been connected digitally on social media. And one of the things that I've always appreciated so much of my work ends up being with people around their mother wounds
Mm,
and working through relationships with family of origin stuff, but a lot of stuff that people are unpacking around their relationship with their mothers.
yeah.
And I mean, and it's just via social media, but it just seems like you have these epic relationships with your children.
Mm,
And, but to me, what feels the most palpable is how you regard them as these individual, incredible beings and
Mm.
really encourage them to be who they are.
I hope so. I hope that's what it looks like and smells like, because that's totally how I feel. And it's also what's making it really impossible to even consider leaving right now.
Mm-hmm,
I don't
mm-hmm,
want I don't want to. I don't want to go. And
mm-hmm.
I'm working with having a little more grace around that. That's like a thing for me right now, is to be more gentle, like I have been in my life with this, as I guess I'll tell you in a minute. But my babies have always felt like they were, they came through me, and that they were here with their own fully formed book to tell me how to take care of them, and they were all totally different.
Mm.
And they're the greatest things that ever happened to me. And I have two grandbabies now, and to watch your child be a parent is really quite an amazing thing. And all of the broken motherhood tools that I used on my oldest son, he has dissolved and like has a much healthier way of of being with his kids than I did with them when they were little. And that's the goal, is that every layer gets a little healthier,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully that the layer that screwed you up can have a conversation with you before they die, so that you can help to heal some wounds.
Yeah, yeah,
Right? Like, it's almost turned into my favorite activity in a way, to like listen to the ways that they have experienced pain that I was part of.
mm,
And now, with this time that we've been given, to actually like live it, listen to it, and receive it and hear it, and then try to hear how can I help you heal that thing that I did when I didn't know better?
yeah,
How can I help you feel all the love that I have for you in a way that can um, erase some of the pain that you had when I messed it up back then? Now
yeah.
I know better. How can we help you feel the love that I really have always had for you in a
Mm.
better way?
Like, what is that like? I think this is going to be like, what is that like?
Oh, it's torture. It's a
Yeah,
little bit torturous, and you have to kind of get into the space of what it is. What it is a gift that you're trying to give your children. You're trying to be the best mother you are in their adulthood, that you tried to be when they were little babies and needed you completely. And I think you have to really, for me, I just get into the headspace of like, oh, this is so exciting. I'm going to actually get to heal something for my baby.
mm,
I'm going to actually get to help them even more, which that's the worst feeling about having a terminal disease, is that I'm more worried about how they're going to be when I'm gone. How are they going to be in this world with the way this, especially with this new virus out there? I'm like, oh, it was so much easier 2 months ago when I didn't have any thought of this. I was like, oh, they'll be great. They'll be fine. And now this world is like so tumultuous, and it feels almost like how scary it would be for a new mom right now. Like, what am I just bringing a new child into? I feel like, what the heck was I thinking, that I brought 5 children? I actually bawled in bed last night in Taylor's arms and told her, I'm so sorry that I didn't know this was going to happen in your lifetime. And she's like, whoa, whoa.
mm.
Okay, okay, it's just a thing. We're gonna just like deal with it and move through it. But I'm having some weird mother guilt. If I would have known this was part of life, maybe that's how World War II mothers felt, or
Mm-hmm.
something. It would have affected. I mean, I don't want to ever say that I wouldn't have had children, because it's been the greatest part of my world, the greatest part, hands down, for me. But I sure am not sure how I feel about leaving them with this mess right now. And
Yeah,
I'm not leaving today, so I guess we'll figure it out together a little bit.
yeah. So
How do
you
you
go ahead.
No, I'm curious about that, about injuries, and about pain, motherhood pain. And I have my own mom died at 22. So I haven't had a mom since 1988, maybe. And so all of those wounds I have through the course of motherhood tried to heal, but I'm feeling so much of them right now because I just want to be held,
Yeah.
and I just want to be held, like that kind of really fully devoted, it's going to be okay feeling, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. For me, something that has been enormously nourishing for me in terms of all things connected and related to mothers is coming out of being raised Catholic and developing my own relationship with the Divine Mother,
There
and
you go.
all of the aspects of, and all of the expressions and all the ways I can connect and feel with that universal mother energy, which is infinite and not human, so not flawed, like it's just always there, and it's always graceful, and it's always compassionate, and it's always unconditionally loving. And that gives me so much.
That's
So
the deal, is when you finally get to the place where you realize you are the mother
mhm,
of you,
mhm.
and you can go back in and have the most perfect custom made love you've ever dreamed of through
Yes.
mothering yourself.
Yeah, yeah. And also that immense compassion of, like you were saying, looking back, like we all have these childhood injuries, right? Like we all, no one's mother like nailed it. 'Cause it's, I
Right.
mean, I don't have my own kids, but I work with so many women, so many parents, and I'm like, it's the hardest thing ever. It's literally the hardest thing ever. Of course, no one's gonna like get it so amazingly right. And
I
so
actually I had my mentor that I've studied under for 11 years for polarity therapy. He told me it's actually impossible for you to give your child the perfect experience. It's not in the design. The design is to get a little jacked up along the way and rolled and tumbled and scarred, because that's where the deep matrix strength comes from. You
yeah,
have to get tumbled. Oh,
um,
I just hate that rule, but it's true.
it's so true. I'm unplugging. I'm putting my phone on airplane mode and just clicking out of a couple boxes here because our connection is a little bit slow, and I
Okay.
want to. I'm good. I'm good now though. So, yeah, right. Like that is part of the plan. So, part of that connection to the Divine Mother has just helped me be infinitely compassionate in any moments of tension or conflict with my own mom. And our personalities are so different, and we do clash on a lot of things. And
Hmm.
I've really just come to be like, got it. We're just built so differently, of
Just
course,
different.
right? And when we bump into those, so working on things like boundaries and, being discerning about what conversations actually are worth having and which ones aren't,
Yes.
and always doing my best to just honor, like, this person's just very different, like I would with any other person too, like. But a friend of mine many years ago, and people who listen to podcasts have probably heard me say this before, said, your parents are the best at pushing your buttons because they installed them.
That's a good one. They're like, oh yeah, that's right where I put left that one. It's
You have the operating manual.
it's so funny. It doesn't feel like that, but I know what you're saying. It's the same for parents. We get triggered by our kids. It's like I can go straight back to age 27 when I was at my worst, you know, not shining moments. And in just a flash, somebody can just say something to me from back then, and I trip over myself and can't get the words out, and what?
Yeah.
But you're right, it's holding space for the person that your mother is, not the one that you needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that isn't like, that's also what's so fascinating is just because of chronology, you have children when you're younger.
I know, isn't it
And then once
unfortunate?
you know better,
That's so jacked up.
when they're so impressionable.
Yeah. Little kids raising kids.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
is.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. And so, and you were 27 when you had your youngest or oldest?
No, when I had my oldest, had just turned 20.
Okay.
Was 19 when I was pregnant and married. I don't know who thought that was a great idea,
But
but
19-year-olds know everything.
they don't need much. They don't need much instruction from the rest of us. I have one right now, a 19-year-old, and she's much better than I was, but she still knows more than I do. It's when she gets older that she'll go, oh, wait, yeah, that's right. There's some wisdom in my genes.
Yeah. Yeah. And watching, like what you said earlier, watching some of your kids become parents.
Yeah.
I have a little niece now who's almost 2, and watching my brother, who's my younger brother, become a dad has
Yeah.
been one of the absolute most fun, amazing experiences of my life.
Just watching him like go into this role that you never got to see him be in.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it's so
And he's
cool.
so good at it.
You're like, how do you know this stuff? Where did you get these tools?
Yeah. Yeah. Every time I'm with them, and it's a little different for me, obviously, because I don't have kids, but I'll be like, how do you know what to do?
Where is this coming from?
How do you know she's going to want to eat that?
My son and his partner, they have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and they literally say things like, wow, it feels like you're getting really anxious right now. Do you think that you need to like go for a really fast run, or do you just need to go sit in your room for a little bit, or do you need a hug? Does there any of those sound good? Are you mad? And they just like stepping stones that they're laying for them to figure out what they're feeling,
It's brilliant.
how to like fix it when they're feeling that way, or how to honor it when they're feeling that way. I just think, oh man, that's like drop the mic for me. That's so much better than what I did, you guys. Good job.
It's amazing. So you started to allude to it earlier. So I know also you were a hospice nurse for many years, right?
Yes, I think death was a calling of mine for since as long as I remember. Actually, I actually got caught when I was 4 years old making a pet cemetery, and with my friends, we were just looking for dead bugs, dead birds, dead animals, and we would have a whole ceremony, and we would wrap it in a cloth, and we would make a little headstone, and we would say some things, and we'd put our hands on top of the animal and wish it a great life, whatever it was that we were doing at 4 and 5. But my mom came around the corner and saw me, and really, I don't remember what she said, but it was startling to my system. Like, what are you doing? That's crazy. Don't touch dead things. Don't talk about dead things.
Mm.
And I thought, oh man. So when she died, she had a 6-day bout with cancer. But I started college the day after her funeral to become a nurse, and I knew I was going to become a hospice nurse at some point because of the experience I had with my mom. But what I ended up doing was 8 years of labor and delivery, babies coming in, and then
Wow.
I ended up doing 8 years of hospice, people going out.
Okay, this is amazing. This always happens, whether I'm doing an Akashic Records reading or a healing session or teaching a class or doing a podcast interview. Some conversation with a really significant point happens 24 to 72 hours before the other thing. That is so important. So in one of my Akashic Records readings this morning, one of the things the person asked about was her mom had just turned 80, and she felt like as her mom turned 80, she really slowed down, like significantly. And what she really wanted to know is my mom okay? Like, what's going on? And one of the things that came through in her reading was this cycle of life, how babies come in so fragile. And depending on how long someone's here and how someone lives their life and how they die, people often go out so fragile. And on those bookends of the bell curve of life, they need a lot of care.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean,
And
we all always need care, but you get what I'm saying.
yeah, and we aren't a culture necessarily that celebrates the understanding of that.
No.
We want to put them somewhere for someone else to do that part, which I understand too, because our life has gotten crazy, but we're missing a really deep layer, a profound layer of humanity by not having that part of our process, taking care of the elderly as they're leaving. It's a,
Right.
it's huge.
So what are, I mean, I know, and this was also one of my favorite things that you wrote back in my email. You said, I prefer to hover around the stuff no one wants to talk about. So around this specifically, I mean, that dichotomy of like labor and delivery and then hospice is a really beautiful, I'm sure there's a million ways we could take this. So what feels like something you definitely wanted to talk about or share or say?
Yeah, I think that those two things, and I'm not the first person that has done that, by the way, worked in life and death.
Mhm.
There are a lot of people that are drawn to both of those realms, which to me are the same realm.
Mhm.
And that's the realm of coming in and going out. And I don't really have a strong notion or thought around what happens when you leave your body. I don't have that part down. But what I do know is that there is a definite shift, just as a lot of times babies are born without breathing, and so you have to stimulate them a little bit. And there's a very big difference between the way that their body and their flesh feels before they get their heartbeat or
Oh,
before they get their first breath. And it's the same for people when they leave their body. There's just a very clear something changes. I'll just say that. And it's the animation, it's the life force. It's definitely life force energy, and I don't know what happens to it. But to me, I just feel like it's important to know that there's somewhere that we return to, and I think that other people probably have a more articulate expression around that. But the one thing that I do want to encourage people, and it's so interesting because this has always been, I think, for my entire life, like the thing that I wanted people to get is that it's important to talk about death, especially with people that are dying. And I have a feeling we're all going to know people that are dying
mhm.
soon. And so, what that requires from you is courage, because it's scary to talk about that with somebody. Nobody wants to be, nobody wants to. It's not comfortable, but we are required to find a way to be comfortable with this.
Mhm.
It's just important. And so, I think that a good place to start is maybe even like some journaling or just thinking or even talking about it with somebody, your own death, and becoming like, I almost think it's like coming into union with your finiteness.
Mhm.
You're learning the fact every day, if you are conscious of your impending death, like your mortality. This is what's bringing up for everybody during this time is mortality. We are all threatened and frightened that our lives or people that we love are going to be threatened, and it's they are. For some of the people, they're just not going to be here next year.
Mhm.
And so, don't you want to get articulate with that? Don't you want to be like so resilient and resourceful in a language that you 100% know you're going to go through? And you definitely know your mother and father and your children and your siblings. We're all going to die. And don't you want to be really confident in that conversation, because you don't get to rewind it?
Yeah.
You oftentimes have regrets that you didn't have the skills or you didn't know how to talk about it. So I don't want there to be a sense of urgency or fear around it. I want it to be like exciting, like, wow, I finally get to. It's usually a dark corner over there that people don't look at, right? Don't
Mhm.
you just not want to be in that dialogue with somebody? But I'm telling you that probably the juiciest parts of life come from being able to be vulnerable with somebody through honest, straight, loving conversation with them about how are you doing? What do you want to talk about? I feel scared to talk to you about this. I'm really sad that you might not be here someday. Or I'm really sad that you won't be here someday. How about
Mhm.
that?
Mhm.
And I want to feel better about it. Can we have a conversation about it?
Yeah.
I don't know what the words are for everyone, but for me, the people that are willing to have those conversations with me, it's just so valuable, because it's been such an easy conversation for me to have most of my life, and now I'm finding myself in it, and it's really scary to have. It's very different to be vulnerable with your own death after you've done it for many people. And in some ways it seems like it would be easy, but my resource is not quite there. I don't have a bunch of people yet. They're coming out that are willing to have that conversation with me. A little bit, my kids. A little bit when I want them to, because there are some things that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to demand that a little right now. That's what I get to do uh, during this time.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I remember when my grandpa was dying, my mom told me there were some things that, he was saying. My mom has 3 sisters, especially, like, he took an individual moment with each sister, like, there was conversations he wanted to have. Um, and you hear about people doing this, right? Like, there's some things I wanna tell you before I can't tell you anymore.
Yes.
Um, not in the personal sense with, like, each of your individual children, but in terms of, like, realizations, like, do you not that there's, like, a list, Kelly's top 10 things that I want you to know, nothing like that, but what people listening, especially because you have this perspective, like, you've witnessed this, and here's something I'm super curious about. Sometimes I need to, like, externally process to get to my question. Um, I have noticed over the years, especially the moms that I work with, feel free to tell me so many things about motherhood that they're almost ashamed to share with other people and especially other moms for fear of being judged. So I am curious if you had had the experience of people sharing things with you that maybe they wouldn't even have shared with their family members, or maybe eventually they did, but they were more because either you were a stranger or you weren't as close as the other people in their life. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So are you saying during my hospice years, and also like I forgot to include in that 12 years ago when I left nursing after 18 years, I became a death doula, like a polarity and cranial sacral. I do a lot of work with dying people. I don't
Mhm.
right now, but because I'm in the middle of doing my own. But I think what you're asking is when you're in those intimate moments with another person and you receive information or you're getting information from them at the end of their life, how does that feel or how?
Yeah, or I'm always so curious about patterns.
Okay.
Any themes, any things that seem like this is always something that people wanna share or, like, a pretty common realization, and not to boil it down, like, this is obviously some complex and intimate, but I feel like that's a good place to start, and then we could pull more things apart and out of it.
Yeah, I think there have always been patterns for sure that I've noticed around people dying, and obviously people that are not in what they think is their sequential, younger people.
Mhm.
It's a much different experience to have to take care of someone dying that's young. If it's children, they have this very bizarre innate sense of understanding the rhythms and the cycles of life, and there really isn't nearly as much trauma as you would imagine.
Mhm.
But someone your age, or maybe even 30s, 40s, 50s, people don't want to go yet. It doesn't feel like the right time. And if they have a little chunk of time, there usually is some sense of understanding that comes to them. But I would say across the board, most people wish that they had obviously spent more time with the people that they love, been softer with the people they love.
Mm.
And I think it seems so serious when you're in the middle of life, and it's just really not that serious as we're all feeling right now. We
Mhm.
are readjusted, like our radio dial is tuning into something that we haven't maybe had in this generation, which is, whoa, I got to sit down, sit still, and listen to my life, and listen to the earth, and listen to the animals, and listen to this is the pulsation of life that's happening right now. And this is also like we're feel. I think I could be wrong, but it feels like um, the death. It's a death of the world that we knew. We don't know what the new one looks like.
Yeah. And we can't
So
know. And people want to plan. I mean, so this is what is so fascinating about death, whether you're speaking about it metaphorically or like literally as it's happening. How many books are there about people's near-death experiences and
right.
recounting what has happened? I don't know if you've ever heard of Anita Morjani. I had her on the podcast, and
Oh,
we talked about like that book changed my friggin' life, Dying to Be Me. If anyone hasn't ever read that or listened to the podcast episode, we'll put a link to it in the show notes. And all these experiences are different. I didn't even know till a couple years ago. My dad was in a car accident and he heard a debate whether or not to leave him or take him.
wow.
And
Oh
they were
my
like,
God.
nah, it's not his time. Let him stay.
Wow. It's not his time.
And that was before I was born.
Holy moly. Wow.
Right. So all the dots that connect. So similarly with this, like we're in a collective death, like you're saying, because
We're
we're
all
sitting there,
experiencing death.
like
Right.
life as we knew it is literally over.
Correct. Yeah,
Nothing will be the same after this, much like an individual life. And
that's right.
and we literally don't know what happens on
That's
the other
right.
side.
We don't know what's on the other side. We could imagine it or read books or have a conversation with each other and try to picture it, but we don't know. And and that's both exciting. Don't you feel moments of like just pure exhilaration around that?
Totally. Yeah, which
And
feels
then
inappropriate. I keep judging myself for that.
I know. Sometimes I'll read a post that somebody makes like, "Oh, Mother Earth is," and I go, "Hey, I don't want to go yet. I don't want to read that." But the truth is, like, something came in. We could have never had a response like this
Mhm.
ever
Mhm.
without uh, something tiny, microscopic, invisible that threatens all of us. It could have been aliens too, perhaps. It could have been something that threatens the world for us to. It had to be, and so here we are. Right, we're succumbing to the rhythm of Gaia, and that this is what it feels like.
I'm giggling a little bit, not because any of this is funny, but because we live in the age of memes. And I literally saw a meme the other day that said, judging on how people are responding to the coronavirus, no wonder the government doesn't tell us about aliens.
No wonder. Look at how scared we are. I'm not telling them about that. Look at how they just handle a virus.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something of this world.
that's right.
So those are,
Okay, so
th-
so
that's
yeah,
okay. The themes, the rhythms. So this age piece is so interesting. Little kids being a bit more tuned into like the natural cycles and rhythms. People, younger folks who feel like they should have had more time, and that something, you didn't say this, but my interpretation, like something's really being taken, or like they've been robbed of something.
yeah. I mean, people that have done the template, worked their whole lives and done this thing to set money aside to be okay in these older years.
Yeah.
It's changing, just like when the stock market crashed or something. But we're doing it all together. We don't know together
Mm-hmm.
as a globe what life will look like. And I don't want to be dramatic and I don't think it's a time to be terrified right now. I think it's definitely a time to like do some things and go inward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And um and write letters and call and FaceTime, take advantage of these miracles that we have right now. Like to see your face right now is such a vastly different experience for me than messaging back and forth. We
Yeah.
have to stay connected with this medium. It's important right now, right?
Because we really can feel each other,
I can feel
through
you.
FaceTime, through, I was supposed to go home this week and be with my little niece, and I didn't go. Because my parents, there's not a chance I would have risked my parents' health, just to go be selfish and see everybody, like, and where's the line on that? I'm not saying that in a judgment
I
way.
don't
Some
know.
people might, we don't know, like, again, unprecedented, but my brother, I've asked my family, they'll FaceTime her and they'll be like, hey, Ruby, say hi to Aunt Lizzie. And I'm like, yo, you guys stop trying to get her to do stuff for me. Just prop up the phone. Just let me watch her.
Yes,
I
I
just want
do
to
that.
watch her, because if I was there, I'd be watching her. I'd be
Totally.
just marveling at her little curiosity and all the little things she's doing. So I'm also curious about this, because you said like this slow down, this pause. for like the collective death, all of us right now, but as a person who is dying, how are you taking people in, things in, every little thing differently? Like, what is that like?
Yeah, I'm memorizing life right now. That's what I
Mm,
think.
mm.
Every minute, I just want the smell. I'm stuck on my phone too. Like, whatever. I'm not doing this perfectly. Trust me.
What is the formula for that, right? Who the
I
hell
don't
knows?
know. But I am trying to memorize, which makes it a little trickier to not have my babies here in my lap like I want them. I have Tay here, and we've turned into some other weird relationship that's we're both in trauma right now. And I should be the mother that's comforting her, but I'm in my own like thing. So uh I totally forgot what we were even talking about just now, by the way.
How it's okay. How you called it memorizing everything.
Memorizing smells and eye color and
Yeah.
the clarity and the crispness of things, and laughing at the things that would have jacked me up, like 2 weeks ago. Now I
Mm.
just go, oh, interesting. And I've heard it described as a still point. If you've ever had a cranial sacral session before, when the system just completely stops and
Mhm.
is suspended, it just like stops. That's what I think the earth is in right now, is a still point. So that's the thing to do. Like I want to get my podcast and my book written, and I want to work out and lift weights, and I'm going to have the best body ever after whatever the thing is that everybody's saying. It's really right now it's called stop.
Yeah.
Just stop for a little bit. It's okay. We'll find out what the things are that we need to do, and we'll move forward together and things like that. But right now, just really coming in and having that softness and the reverence and texting people the loving messages that you want them to know. And not because we might all not be here next month, but because that's what this moment is reminding us the really important things that already exist for us, and
Mhm.
to slap us a little bit and remind us this is it. This is human beings and your connection to them, or your animals, or your earth, your planet that you live on. Just be in those things right now.
So this makes me think of a question because I have been feeling this week like my dreams are much more vivid than usual.
Mm.
And so sharp. Even the beginning of the week, I had the most lucid dream I've ever had in my life. Where just like right in the middle of the dream, I was like, "Oh, I'm dreaming," and then I got up and I was walking around in the dream, exploring, and
Wow.
literally feeling like I'm in two places at once. I'm sleeping in this bed and I'm in this dream. It was very interesting. And then, but what I'm doing now that I don't always do is all the people who were in my dreams in the morning. I'm texting them like, and I'm saying, "Hey, you were my dream, so I'm checking in on you."
Good
And,
job.
and some of them are not people I usually talk to. Some of them are people I do. And I tell them what was in the dream because I always get so much out of when people are like, "Oh, you were my dream." I know that in the dreamscape, everything is just a part of your own psyche and a symbol for you. But I personally find when people tell me that I was in their dream, it's always a message for me as well. Whatever I was doing is significant, right? So that's something. And it just feels like the distance between the waking world and the dream world is so much shorter right now,
It's very thin.
very thin. And so, what this makes me want to ask you is I remember when my niece was born, a couple of my more like spiritual, mystical friends were like, she's closer to that realm because she just came in. So,
Totally.
like, look her in the eyes and see if there's anything she wants to tell you. Now, some people listening might be like, what the hell does that mean? If you know,
Oh
you
yeah.
know. If you don't, it's fine. And maybe if there's anything you want to share about that, you can. And but then I'm wondering also being closer to death's door. So there's like that portal that the baby just came out of, the portal that you're going to be exiting through. Do you feel closer?
Yes, I do. I'm protesting feeling closer to it, actually, because I know what it kind of means.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel like that's true, and I totally know that's true with babies. Even my grandkids, when they were born, fairly recently, there's just a deep wisdom, and it is because they're so close to that veil, and that's the same veil it is when you leave, maybe the other side of the room or something.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something that you said that I wanted to also touch on, and that was oh, the dream time. I totally am feeling like such a strong commitment to being in dream time. And there's the book. Have you ever, or did you read that book, Mutant Messenger Down Under?
No,
It's a
writing it
great,
down.
it's a great book. I'm not sure how old it is, but it's this story of this woman who gets brought into this Aboriginal tribe, and they, you know, the Aboriginals believe that's the oldest, group of humans on the planet. Maybe that's not true, but they believe that nighttime, dream time, is the real time, and daytime, all that is a stage for you to act out the messages that you just received. And so I'm into that right now. I like
I love
that.
that.
Doesn't that feel like, oh, I am equipped? Oh, my antenna is plugged in. I am hearing what wisdom is coming to me.
Yeah.
I'm discerning it, and I'm clear, and I feel it, and I know it. That's what that feels like to me, to go to sleep and listen.
So every night this week before bed, I'm like a little kid. I am so excited to go to bed. Like I'm literally squealing, which feels weird because it's like I'm tired, but I'm like, "Ah!" Like
Ah,
literally in my house by myself, just like that. I'm like, oh, I get to go to bed. And that's part of it. It's like I
it
get to
is.
sleep. I get to maybe have a dream. Maybe I'll remember it. We'll see how much. I always have a dream journal. I don't always use it, but these days I'm like, I got to write this out. I got to
Oh,
like
cool.
try to remember as much of the detail as possible.
Yes. And I have my business partner, Amanda. We have an online school, but she does sessions, or I don't know if she still does these, but she does dream sessions with people and helps them to paint their self portrait from their dream, and then do an energy session with them. And I'm always
That's
just
freaking
blown
cool.
away. Like, what? People, this is the time to do that. You should write your dreams and then paint them. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. It's so it's so fun. It feels like wildly inappropriate to call anything fun during this time, but like we also have to maintain that
You can
at the
honor the
same
dark.
time.
You can honor the dark and still walk right.
Yeah.
Walk with the light.
This is also making me curious to find like an elder in an indigenous lineage or something to talk about because I know, those are the cultures that have no issue with death. That
Right.
just it's just it's literally part of life. It's part of the cycle.
There's a great TED talk. I'll tell you what that is, that you can post too, on death. And she's married to a man who grew up in a community in Indonesia that was the deal. They honored death above birthdays, above baby showers, above weddings. Death, as soon as you were born, you're communicated that this is part of your life. It's over at some point. For some people, it's younger. For some people, it's old. I don't know when you'll die, but you will die. So the goal is to be the best human being you can be before the end of your life, before all your tokens are used up.
Yeah. Um, my favorite quote, people who listen to the show have heard me say this a bajillion times, is by a woman named Irma Bombach. And it goes, when I stand before God at the end of my life, I hope that I'll be able to say, I used everything you gave me.
Oh,
I heard that like over a decade ago. And I was like, oh, that's it.
yeah,
That's it. Like and then there's this prayer I always say, use me, move me, make me a force for expansion, for love, for good, and for healing. It's just like, what do I have that is needed? Put it out
yeah.
there.
You're so great at that, Elizabeth.
Thanks. Well, because that's the focus, right? Like that somehow that message got through,
Yeah.
like what you just said.
That, oh, it's finite. It's not promised. You don't know that you're going to grow 90 like your Nana. You don't know that.
100%.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that a lot too. I've left my house only in the last week now, to food shop, and I wear a mask when I leave the house because I don't trust these people out here in
Yeah.
Los Angeles. there's a lot of exceptionalism, a lot of people who just don't think anything would happen to them. And
Mm.
they're not thinking about like virology, if that's what it's called, or they're just like, it doesn't, like, you wouldn't know, you wouldn't feel anything, but you could be the thing that contaminates someone else, that it could be really harmful for, so um I was saying that because why? I lost my train of thought for a second too.
You said, let's see.
Oh, but it's that not acknowledging. It's like people think they're invincible.
Right.
I was thinking about this as well when Kobe Bryant died. That hit people so hard because he had like superhuman status.
Right.
And I think that faces people with their own mortality as well. When someone who seems like beyond like demigod status
Vital.
and young, right?
Yes. It's important to know that and to remind yourself of that. Really. It's such a cliche to be of that world where you are counting your blessings while they're unfolding, but really that's why you read it and hear it so much, because it's the truth. Because watching your life and being in your life is by far the most beautiful gift you can give yourself and everyone else in your life. And I promise you will not miss your phone. I promise you will not.
No one's gonna miss their freaking phone.
No. Well, maybe.
You'll miss the pictures that are on the pictures and the videos. I will say, so my Aunt Annie, who, people love to give my Aunt Annie and my family crap about I'm going to put air quotes around weird things. But at this age now, I'm like, she's the one who knew what was going on a lot of the time.
Right.
Like I'm that kind of weird now too. My brother and I talk about this. So
that's where you got your psychic genes from, was Aunt Annie.
So she was always, even before we had like smartphones, trying to like get videos of people and record things, and people be like, get the camera out of here. But, she's the one who had videos and audios of my grandparents.
Oh, wow.
That after they were gone, these are the types of things that we don't think about, right? Like, oh, I'm never going to hear that person's voice again, or I'm not going to see them.
Oh, man, let me tell you, I can't remember my mom's voice, and I can't hear her laugh, and we don't have any video.
Yeah.
She actually died before she ever even had an email or internet or anything.
Yeah.
So those are the things. Think about how you can capture that. I do have her shirt that she wore to the hospital that smells like her. And
it still smells like her?
Still smells like her. I keep it like wadded up in a thing.
Yeah, yeah. My mom will do that sometimes. She has my grandpa's shirt. She'll be like, want to smell pop?
I bet she misses him so much. Yeah.
So much. She'll give me a waft.
Yeah.
I can't particularly handle it. It's been a decade. I still can't handle it.
Yeah. And that's the deal, is to be, I think that's the most important thing, is that in these moments of stillness and in these, this is like second chance moments. This is almost how I feel getting a few extra months or perhaps years or whatever it is that I get. I think, oh my gosh, this is second chance moments. We all have that right now. We totally have the ability to take another inventory, go back in and sculpt and shape and polish some things that you did a little raunchy 10, 20 years ago. That you're like, not for any reason other than that's what this moment is for, is to go back in and reimagine and wash ourselves, bathe ourselves in this beautiful sacred time.
And you used the word grace earlier. That is just, I actually, my most recent tattoo, I got the words under grace on my right bicep. I love thinking about grace.
What does it mean to you, grace? I'm just curious.
It's so hard to put it into words, but it's love. It's God, right? Like grace. It feels like this force that comes through and lifts the things that we can't possibly carry ourselves. Right? Grace does the heavy lifting. I interviewed my friend KJ. It was almost 2 years ago now, and one of the things we talked about was forgiveness. Right? We can all do all this forgiveness work, but ultimately, at the moment when we actually let something go, or someone, that's grace.
Right in that moment, it's like the little
Yeah.
space.
Yeah. When we're like, oh, it is actually lifted. Or when we notice that it's lifted.
Oh, I love
That's
that so much.
grace.
I'm going to write that down. I really love that.
Yeah. So you said, Grace, I'm noticing this right now with all the Corona stuff, just people being a little more gentle with each other,
Mm.
a little less confrontational. Some, not all.
We have good news feeds, you and I.
We have good news feeds.
We
You're
really
right.
do.
We have cultivated that shit.
Yes. Very tiny little tools and instruments to clean that up.
Yeah. But even some people, actually, some people who I know who are usually a little more volatile and hostile, I'm seeing them right. Some like, I'm just seeing I'm like, oh, I'm like, Grace. I imagine Grace as like this angel. Like if there was an embodiment of Grace, it's
Mm.
almost like a breeze, like an embodied breeze that comes through and like, I don't know.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I feel like I could see it. I'm
An
like, oh, they got
embodied
a,
breeze.
right? It's like, oh, they got a little visit from Grace.
Yeah. Hello, Grace.
Hello, Grace. That's what it looks like. At least it feels just, you said something earlier. You said being softer. It feels softer after Grace passes through.
It's softer. That's what it feels like right now. Actually, it reminds me of this. I'm trying to reconstruct my morning ritual, my sadhana right now, because the old one doesn't necessarily fit. I want a new one that's slower,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to take like a couple hours instead of my 15-minute sadhana. I want to like read for 20 minutes. But I have a practice which I'm pretty sure you have had in your life, or maybe you already still do this, but where you're showing gratitude to your body for all the different things that it's doing. And especially right now, where you really want the most powerful immune system and really beautiful lungs. What a great time to have a graceful practice. When you said grace, I went, ooh, that's what that is. Where you're talking to your body from a place of, I'm cheering for you.
Mm-hmm.
I know you got this. I see my lungs. I see how they're just perfectly expanding and opening. I see my bones getting stronger. I whatever this thing is, but to take time for each thing, your knees and your
Yeah.
ankles and your toes and your thing, like just
Mm-hmm.
what a beautiful practice right now, that it just feels like that is so fortifying and will get us to the place where when we can come out of this, oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
And the fascia, I'm in this erotic movement arch training this year.
Dude, I love watching your erotic movement videos.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really, that sounds great. Your erotic movement
No,
videos are,
but this is part of it, right? Is the word erotic is so co-opted.
yes.
It's love. It's love embodied. It's affection. It's
Ex-
joy. It's sensuality, not sexuality, right? Like the word is pornified and sexualized. That is not what that word actually means. It is not the root of the word. So it's just love, right?
It's just love.
It's enjoying the pleasure of your own existence if it's your own personal practice. But the reason I bring that up is because, I haven't had to look at necessarily anatomy and physiology in this way with like books like Trail Guide to the Body and these things, and you do cranial sacral and urinary, so like all these things probably like the back of your hand. But I'm looking at it in such a different way now than back when I was a decade ago when I was taking my personal training certifications, and it was like grueling for me to like study and remember the like insertions and attachments of the muscles and stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
this thing is a friggin' miracle.
It's a miracle. It's an absolute miracle. And I actually would like to share something that we haven't talked about yet,
Yes,
if
please.
that's okay.
Yeah, that's what this is for.
So I have been very vital and very healthy my whole life. I
Oh
became
yeah.
a yoga teacher when I was in 2000, and my daughter and I opened up a juice company, and we eat raw vegan. We really have taken really excellent care of our bodies, at least for the last 20 years. But anyway, I about 20 years ago had breast implants put in, and about 2 years ago my right breast implant ruptured, and I became very sick, and I went and had the surgery done to remove my implants. This was before we knew as much as we do now about the process or the procedure of removing breast implants. And there's a real specific procedure called an en bloc or a capsulectomy that they do, where they can remove the contents of the rupture without it actually making contact with your body. Like they remove there's a scar tissue that forms around the implant when you put them in, because your body's like, what are you, crazy? Why are you putting this in here? So they creates a scar tissue around it. And the shell of the actual implant has like 75 different heavy metals and chemicals in it. So it doesn't really matter if it's silicone or saline. It's the outside that really gets your body to go into almost like fight or flight with an autoimmune disorder or something. So anyway, I had a surgery. I had the implants removed. He did not do the procedure that would have kept it from making contact. So when he cut into it, the silicone actually spilled into my chest cavity. About 8 months later, I was still just sick as could be. So I went and had another surgery done to remove all of the silicone. That was like a 6 or 7 hour surgery to remove all the silicone that was on my ribs and sternum and chest.
So it was just hanging out there like a coating?
Well, when it ruptured, it created a splatter. And there was silicone in the chest that the first doctor wasn't able to get, or I don't think he really was the doctor that knew what to do in that situation. So there are some specific cancers that women have developed as a result of a ruptured implant or breast implant illness. It's not always, and it's not all women, so I don't want anyone to panic about that. But that is, for me, and my awareness and my understanding of the disease is where this came from. And as if you need one more thing to think about or worry about right now. I don't want that to be what your listeners do, but I do want there to be some intelligence and an understanding of that the breast implants is an old story. I understand where it comes from, that we're attached to our looks and that we want to have a certain experience in our body, right? This is not one of those ways. I think it's outdated. It has to go. It doesn't fit with our understanding and our intelligence anymore. It just is not safe to put something so caustic and so poisonous into your body and not expect a repercussion. At some point you'll get sick, because it's not great to have that in your system.
When did breast implants, you might not know this is Googleable, but just in case you do know, when did they start? Like when did that?
I don't know. So that is Google. You can Google it. And I like the word Googleable. So now
I'm sure it's not a real word.
Googleable. But I think probably in the 70s, somewhere in the 70s or something. And the problem is that so many of these women have, that get mastectomies, and then they believe that this is a safe alternative to replace the breast that they don't have. And then they end up getting another cancer or a second cancer.
What is yours called?
So my cancer is called multiple myeloma, and it is the type that I have is less than 1% of all multiple myeloma cases. So if you haven't heard of multiple myeloma, you definitely haven't heard of mine, which is IgD kappa light chain. But it's considered cancer of the immune system. It's in the plasma cells. And so inside my bone marrow, there's cancer instead of red blood cells and platelets and white blood cells. I'm just making these very weird proteins for no particular reason because of the exposure to the silicone. Multiple myeloma turns on for most people in the presence of like a lot of people that worked around Roundup or certain chemical Agent Orange, or, they will respond with this cancer. And that's why I'm not mad at my body. I'm like just so proud of my body. There's so much going on in there that is in support of me. Just because I put silicone in for 20 years and my body's responding with a crazy cancer, how in the world am I going to get mad at that?
Right.
now I'm trying to love it and nurture it and say, yeah, I get how that's, I understand that was your response, my dear.
Yeah. So question for you, that's a tender one. Were you mad at yourself at all?
I've had moments of why did I choose that? But there's so many parts of my 20-year-old myself from 20 years ago that I don't even have the residue of anymore. So
Yeah. Yeah.
she's that girl that chose breast implants in that moment and in that situation is definitely not who I am now.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel for her. I had
Mm-hmm.
breastfed for 9 years, and I understand that there was just like an aesthetic situation that was not. But now I think, why would we have shame around the shape of our breasts? Out of our beautiful, milk producing, life giving breasts, who in the world said something to us that made us think standing up fake Barbie plastic tits were worth dying for?
Yeah. Well, we all know who that was, actually.
I know.
Hordes and hordes and hordes. Yeah, I got a beautiful email from a friend of mine. This was many years ago, when I was with my ex, who you know. And one of the things that happened in that relationship was he was very critical of my body. And this is one of the gifts, one of those like ugly gifts, I'll call it, is when we met when I had just started developing Wild Soul Movement. And
Mm.
part of my motivation to just love myself and my body so much was that rebellious part of me that's like, I don't give a shit what you think. I'm going to love this. So it was almost like every time he would criticize me, I'd be like, I'm going to love it more because I'm stubborn.
That's right.
So it's
That's
like,
right.
thank God for that stubbornness. But
I think that's how we invite certain things into our life that we don't believe did not invite this cancer in. Oh, I'm sure I did. On some level, there is maybe I did not invite this cancer in, but I am learning a story around my life that's going deeper than if I was just trying to hear a story about my life. If you have 3D actually tangible characters that are playing out the shit for you, it makes it easier to adjust and grow and stretch and become something bigger.
1,000%. And so, this is really something that is a big part of the Wild Soul Movement work is like, please, every woman everywhere. And, this is for all people, but
Yes.
especially women, because we get that message.
I
Your
know you get
body,
that.
I say it's a work of in progress and a work of art. Even all the years I was in fitness, it was like wanting my body to be a certain way. And even like looking back on, the shape I was in, I'm putting shape in air quotes, when I was in my 20s and the shape I'm in now, I feel much more vibrant and me with
Absolutely.
this frame, which is definitely thicker and juicier and more luscious than that frame, which was leaner, more muscular, and whatever the hell else thing that I thought was better.
It's one of the illusions that's crumbling, and it was already crumbling a few years ago, but I think that your voice and many other women's voices are doing that. These photographers and things that are posting
Mhm.
beautiful pictures of birth and stretch marks. Why in the
Yes.
world would we not love our only beautiful vehicle?
Yes, and like those stretch marks. So that was the thing. I got a beautiful email from my friend because I spoke very openly about that healing process on the podcast and things. And she had read something I wrote or listened to something I said. And she was saying that, one of the things that her husband had said to her, I guess early on in their relationship, was like, yeah, like I didn't marry you for your body. Like, of course I'm attracted to you, but like the one thing that I can 100% guarantee will erode over time is your physical body.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
all these other things that I love that I signed up for.
Isn't that something?
And I
What a
remember crying my eyes out reading that. And I'm like, yes, this is how it should be.
That's right. That's what you want to hear. That's what you want to find. I don't think that you're going to be happy unless you have that. You want to have the best partner you could possibly have to do life with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so this, hearing it from your perspective, hearing it from that perspective, I don't think there's enough angles until the end of time that we could share that same message that the body is a friggin' miracle.
It's a miracle. And I think too, like even when I go to get chemo, I have a giant sound bowl that my kids gave me many years ago for Mother's Day, and so I put I have oral chemo tablets that I take, and I also get infusions done.
Mhm.
And I do that along with tons of alternative things, lots of alternative things. So I like that I have my hands in both elements, but I will put my medicine in my sound bowl, and I will tone with it, and I'll say, I want this to go exactly where it's supposed to go, and
Mm,
I love for it to bypass my tender, beautiful organs. But I also trust the intelligence of my body that knows how to make
yes, yes.
mitochondria, and it
Yeah.
knows how to like make enzymes in my liver to break, it's just a miracle that it does what it does. And it made 5 babies and fed them for 9 years. Are you kidding me?
5 people.
5 people.
There are
And
5 people walking this earth that you made. That blows my mind.
that's just bizarre. So when I start getting really cranky about, but I'm only 53, I go, "Are you kidding? You got like 6 lifetimes out of your one." I
Hmm.
feel
Hmm.
just really rich.
I really love this share. So for anyone who isn't familiar with what she's talking about sounding, so like a sound bowl, like a singing bowl, is it crystal or is it something else?
It's crystal, and it's the big one, so it's
Big
got
Mama.
lots of room, and I will just straddle it sometimes and
Oh, so amazing. So this is, if anyone doesn't know what that is, this is sound healing. People can play these singing bowls. It makes these incredible, you feel the reverberation in your whole body. If you've ever been to a sound bath, it's like one of the most amazing, like time traveling experiences if you really get into it. Um, I'll just tell you something funny because I can't help myself. There's a store here in Venice called Mystic Journey Bookstore. It's just like a, what's the word? Like an esoteric kind of bookstore place, right? And in the back, they have all the singing bowls, a couple of gongs, and a bunch of wind chimes. And every time I go in there, my little 7-year-old is like, see if you can get everything to make noise at the same time. Yes. I'm like, Tom
Oh.
Hanks in Big. I'm a grown ass woman, 36 years old. Like,
Ding, 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 ding.
how many things can I get to make noise? But you feel it. It's like the reverberation, which is so amazing. So, but I love this idea, and I'm geeking out on it because I've studied a lot of energy medicine, energy healing stuff too. And I love the idea of putting the medicine in there and creating the resonance, creating the vibration, putting your prayers or your intentions into that. Because in this culture, so many people are applying their prayers and their intentions to like manifestation
Right,
and like getting things.
right.
And I love to hear you using that to heal in a different way.
I totally think that. I think it's about acknowledging what you have first in
Mhm.
all parts of life. It's really being aware and valuing and paying homage to the beautiful things that are here right now. And we're all learning that really largely right now. We're learning to appreciate the things that we have, not the illusions, but the things, yeah, the things that we have, our
Mhm.
bodies and our hearts and our people and our emotions. And even when I go to the chemo place, which I'm supposed to go back in on Tuesday coming up, and I'm kind of nervous about leaving. I haven't been out in probably 2 weeks, but I take tuning forks with me,
Mhm.
and I'll do it with my bags of chemo. I'll just use a C and a G and just kind of go around, and I do the same thing that I do with my sound bowl. I'll imagine that the chemo is going straight to the membrane of the cancer cell,
I love
and
that.
it's popping it and breaking it, and then it's just getting into my large intestine and getting out before anything else gets hurt.
I love that.
And every time I go to the doctor, he just goes, I don't know what to say. I
Mhm.
can't believe your numbers. I don't get it, what you are doing, but you're really doing like amazingly well. And that, since I know how to read my lab results, I say, yes, I am.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what I also love about this is not a time to feel self-conscious or weird or judge yourself and be like, maybe I shouldn't do this. What are people going to think? There's just none of that.
No, there's none of that. That's the most beautiful thing about right now is people are jumping on and not caring about, is my part straight. I have a Facebook page called Kelly's World where I have a bunch of my friends and just people, and I go on and do Facebook lives and talk about death, and or sometimes I'll get on and bawl.
Mm-hmm.
And but the thing about it is 4 months ago I would like curl my hair and put some makeup and do this thing, and now I just go, oh, sorry, I forgot that I haven't taken a bath in a week, folks. But because it's more about the connection. That's all that anybody needs, is the connection, and they need the eyes, and they need to feel that somebody cares about them. And that's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
We're creating that, and it's really touching and really beautiful. It's really weird and great.
So, one of the things I've noticed over the years, as I go deeper into my own studies and like enamoration with mystical and esoteric things, what strikes me as strange or, uncomfortable is very different from what strikes other people that way. So,
Yeah.
I want to just check in around the hovering around things that most people don't want to talk about. To me, it doesn't feel like we've talked about anything that uncomfortable, but we probably have, right?
Well, I don't know.
Your perception's probably skewed also.
Yeah, we haven't really gone into that. I think, and maybe it's good that we haven't. Maybe we need to be a little sensitive right now too, and not necessarily be so traumatizing. Maybe we'll save that. But the main thing is that we're coming up on some times right now where you want to have the ability to dialogue with people that you care about that are losing their lives, and you want to be able to support the people that mattered the most to them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's all of this real need right now to get past old blockages that you have around death, and really just, it's a growth period too. Right now is stillness. After stillness will be growth. Just, it's inevitable. We're going to grow in ways that we don't have an imagination of yet.
I was
And why
thinking
not?
about that. Oh, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, and just why not let that be one of them? Why get really intimate with death and the ability to talk about your
Yeah.
own death, dying, and other people's, so you can be of service for this chapter that's coming.
Yeah. I mean, it is one of the most intimate things. A friend of mine, her dad passed away in the fall. And so all those months that he was sick and also going to chemo and like all these things, being by her side through that also gave me an experience of death that I was super grateful to
What
be. Go ahead.
what is your experience with death? What have you experienced in your life as far as death?
Not I will say not a lot. So when I was young, I was about 8, my dad's brother died of AIDS. And I was too young to really understand what was going on. And I also didn't actually know until many years later that it was AIDS, because I think there was still a stigma around that.
Mm.
And so, as far as I know, my uncle Lou, who was my godfather, was like just a wild child in the 70s.
Yeah, Uncle Lou.
Yep. So that, as far as I know, is how that came to be. And then my great grandmother, who was my dad's grandmother, passed away my senior year of high school. Um, my own grandfather passed away, which that was the closest and hardest one for me. We were super, super close in 2008. And all the other death I had ever experienced, really, and then my grandmother in 2016, has been just like far enough away from me that I could acknowledge that that is a very sad thing, but wasn't necessarily something that I personally had to grieve too much. There was a kid I went to high school with who BB gun accident with a friend, got shot in the head, and was just kind of a vegetable for many years, and then he eventually passed away. Um, so I feel like on the broad scale of things, I just haven't had
Right.
a lot of direct experience with death.
And I think that many people have um, that memory of not really understanding it from a child's perspective. And
Hmm.
that's one thing that I also would encourage your listeners. Everybody has a different idea of when it's the right time to talk to your kids about death or to include them in the conversation. And I would almost say the opposite. They just came from the place where they're informed about that, and it should be part of their conversation and their vocabulary from a very early age. And I don't know what that looks like for everyone, but I would just say your children are much more wise about this, and it's a very natural, normal thing. It's not something that you necessarily save until they're older to tell them about. You have opportunities to have that just be part of the truth. And I think that what happens is that the discomfort lifts, and we feel resourced, and we feel powerful, and we can show up for each other in ways that we should literally be able to show up for each other.
And build the muscle of like what to say. So over the
Yes.
years, as I've experienced more people have had great loss, I've honed saying things like, I don't know what to say, but I want you to know I'm thinking about you.
Mm.
I can't imagine. And even things that some people who are around grieving people will say, like, don't ask people what they need. They don't know what they need. You know, they couldn't possibly articulate for you what they need. They're overwhelmed. They're upset, like, you know, all these freaking things going on. So like offer something concrete, offer something tangible, even stuff like that. Right.
I just had the best idea. Okay. So one of the things that I've been doing I've had so much support, so many wonderful people. Now it's shut down. We don't have visitors, but in the first couple of months when this was happening, just so many people reaching out. And one of my favorite tricks to do was to think of that person when they would say, what can I help you with? What do you need? I would think of that person and something that I loved about them. And then I would say, will you come teach me how to do that cool thing you do with journals?
Oh, I love that.
Will you come and teach me how to sing a song? I want to sing Aretha Franklin. Will you come teach me how to sing Respect? And I've had like people just coming in and bringing something they're excellent at,
That's
that I
cool.
admire, and then they get to feel really powerful and strong in the presence of death.
That's
And
amazing.
it's the coolest thing. So think of what you're good at. Think of something like making bracelets or whatever the thing is. I had somebody make like over 1,000 bracelets for me with a little card attached that said, I'm standing with Kelly or something. What the heck? And so I don't know why that came to me, but I love that it did, because I think that if your listeners could think of it from that perspective, it's just a continuum of life. It's not
Yeah.
an event. It's just part of the same life that you've loved all of this time. And think of a way that you can be helpful in the ways that you've been helpful through the years for that person.
And I love this too, because to think about dying, what would you want most? You'd want to spend the time with your favorite parts of the people in your life, right? The things
Totally.
that you anticipate. We don't know what happens on the other side, but if there's still some awareness that you would miss the most, right?
Yes. Yes. That's right. Oh, man. Yeah, that makes me think. Just hearing you say that makes me think about things I'm going to miss the most, if I have the consciousness around it. But just what I'm missing, what I'm thinking about missing most.
Do you feel like sharing any of those or no?
Ah, my babies,
Yeah.
humans. I just love people so much. Humans are just the most incredible things, and it's been just such a privilege to know the humans I've known, for sure, including my 5 babies
Well,
and my ex-husbands. I love my 2 ex-husbands so much right now. They're just the best. They're circling around me just like wonderful men.
it's amazing. And I'm sure a major testament to who and how you are.
They might not agree with that.
I will make that presumption for all of us. Anything I haven't asked you? Anything else you could think of or that's on your heart that you're like, oh, and there's always stuff after that we're like, crap, we should have said that.
I think I'm okay. I think that feels complete for me.
Cool. Thank you so much for people listening. Thank you for listening. What did you call the page you said? Kelly's World? Is that for private people? Do you want people on that or?
No, come on over. I've been. It's so funny because we just get on. It's like having a bunch of friends. We just get on and talk about things. And I have been doing a death podcast with my mentor. Not a podcast, but just maybe 2 episodes. It's a series. We don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're just talking about this weird shit, you know?
Yeah. And I noticed too on Instagram that you were sharing some of like the alternative, like the integrative and holistic, like, yes, I'm doing, the thing that I watched this morning was you were talking about, you know, rebuilding, reconnecting to your relationship to allopathic medicine,
Mm.
but keeping the holistic and integrative things as well, which I know some people here might be super interested and curious to hear about that stuff as well.
Yeah, and it's a funny walk. It's the only one that would have worked for me to have to honor both parts of my life like that, to have science, you know, the medicine and the alternative, because they both are so important to me. And love my I love having access to all things, right?
Mhm.
I want to have all of them. And I was on schedule to get a stem cell transplant next month, which has been obviously postponed. So we'll see. I'm just going with the flow, and we'll see where it goes.
All right.
I want to tell you, really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for this conversation. And I'm open to having anything else, any other conversation that would be helpful to anyone, and to you, just even as friends. And we'll just walk each other through some stuff.
I'm like, I'm like, oh, I hope there's another conversation that comes after all this.
I betcha.
So we'll put links if people want to follow your journey and other things that you're sharing in the show notes. This is episode number 337. So those show notes will be at untameyourself.com/337. So this is actually the first time we technically have met. We've
Weird.
known each other for so many years, but actually voice to voice, connection to connection. So for me, I can say a holy circumstance under which to actually get to meet and be with you and spend some time with you. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a complete privilege. You're a treasure.
All right, y'all. We'll see you later.
The issue is that I have been comparing myself to ideal Jessica, who holds all of these characteristics at every given point in time.
Yes.
And I can't do that. It is not, I cannot. What I can do is, can I be the person who does spend a little bit of time outside every day, the way that ideal Jessica does?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I absolutely can do that. But there are pieces in here that's never going to happen for me.